Good morning, church. Good morning. I just want to say this to you. I don't know what you're facing, and I know there's people in our community that are facing tremendous giants. We're going to see a victory, church. We're going to trust the one who's in control of all of it, and we're going to see a victory. What the enemy meant for evil, God is going to use for good. You with me? Yes. Good. Are y'all glad to be in church this morning? Good. I haven't had the opportunity lately, and we just haven't really had the opportunity, honestly, to talk to you guys a little bit about the student building, our student building project. And so I wanted to take just a little bit of time up front in the service to talk to you about it. If you don't know, we have a student building on Main Street just across from the steakhouse next to Werther's. And we have two storefronts there that we've had one for over a decade, and we've now spread into the other one beside us. And we've been doing some work. There's a lot of work that needed to happen there, and we took up a love offering earlier in the year, and it was incredible. And we've been working in that building, and we just kind of wanted to update you on some things that have been happening. We have basically made it through the demo process, which was more involved than we've thought. We've relied on volunteer workers from inside the church. People that have certain specialties have really volunteered their time, piecemealed, stepped out, get off work, come and work at the student building. And so we've tore down everything. We actually have the new ceilings in, a new HVAC system in. On one side we have the new lighting. Basically we got to do the lighting on the other, put the ceiling tiles up, then we're going to do floor and painting, and then we're going to be done, which will be incredible, yeah. And so there's still a lot of work to be done. We're going to be giving you guys opportunities to be involved. It ended up when we kind of got into it that we realized how messy the project was, and there were some things there we weren't comfortable with just necessarily having just a bunch of people in there in amongst. So we appreciate those of you who signed up. We're going to be reaching out to you now that we've got a lot cleaned up. I think this couple of weekends ago, during the refuel weekend, the community project for the students was going to their own student building and cleaning up all the trash and sweeping and doing all that. So they got a little buy-in. They've had a lot of those kids have been up there working. So this is what I want to say though. Thank you. You guys have made this possible, first off, with your giving, but you've also made it possible with your efforts, and those of you who volunteered and you subcontractors that have jumped in and helped us. We appreciate it so much, and we can't wait to show you pictures, but we just weren't ready to do that yet, okay? Are y'all excited about that? We're hoping that in the first of the year we're going to get these students in there. They've been meeting here right now, and frankly, I'm just tired of picking up Starburst wrappers at this point. It's good. It's good. But thank you. Thank you. Look around this morning. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by it. Thank you. That's two powerful words, isn't it? Thank you. That's what we want to talk about a little bit this morning. Thank you is a statement we make indicative of gratitude, right? When we say thank you to somebody, we're saying to them, you saw me, you heard me, and you did for me. You helped me. You sacrificed for me. And that means something to me, right? That's what thank you means. It means what you did something that matters to me. I felt that. Thank you is the recognition or acknowledgement that someone has done something for you for which you are thankful. And this is the time of year, right, where we pause and we probably finally say thank you. What's next week? Thanksgiving. It's not casserole giving, right? It's Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be giving thanks. We're supposed to pause in our lives, give thanks for everything or anything. And I love this time of year, but probably for the casseroles. And this is what I want to ask you, though, this morning. I need you to start thinking about this. Do you have something to be thankful for? You. Not asking in general. I'm asking you. Do you have something in your life for which you are thankful? Let me ask you this. Do you have something you're thankful to God for? Has God done something for you? Can you look at your life and you see the fingerprints of God? You see His involvement, something that you know without a shadow of a doubt God has done for you. Because this is what I want to say. We're instructed in the Bible in numerous places to enter into His courts with thanksgiving. So I got a question. Have you been in His courts lately with thanksgiving? Do you see some things as you look at your life that you would thank Him for, that you should thank Him for? I hope this is where you immediately thought, yes. The answer is yes, y'all. Right? I think an important indicator of spiritual maturity is being able to look at your life and no matter the circumstances or the situations, being able to look and say, I still see things that God has done for me for which I am thankful. I think that's indicative of spiritual maturity. You are here. You have life, right? You got a ride to church today somehow. Maybe you drove in a nice car. Maybe you drove in a beater, but you got here, right? Maybe you're here with some people who matter to you, to your left and to your right. Maybe you have a friend somewhere in this church and you see that God has placed them in your life or God has given you your spouse or your children. Maybe you had a free donut or cup of coffee, and that's what you got. You're like, the donut was good, you know? And you're like, you're thankful to God for that donut. I know what some of you just thought. You thought, Tim, God doesn't make the donuts. How do you know? You know? I'm just asking. Daily, I believe there is something to thank God for. But what about other people in your life? Has someone in your life, someone around you, have they done something for you? Is there someone or anyone in your life who has blessed you, who has served you, who has helped you, who has complimented you? Is there somebody who has made a lasting difference in your life? Or maybe there's just somebody who made your day a little better this week. Is there somebody to which you owe thanks for what they've done? If that's the case, if you have something to thank God for, you have someone to thank for something they've done for you, I got a question for you. How do you go about expressing your thankfulness? How is it that you share the fact that you are thankful? Do you have some sort of plan, some sort of process for how you go about sharing thankfulness with them? What about God? How do you do it? Pray. That's good. Now, how do you do that specifically, though, Tina? Are you a just, every morning when you get up, you pray and you thank God? That's good. You're better than the rest of us. Just kidding. Do you do it at night when you lay down on your pillow and you just kind of go through? Are you a list maker? I know people who got a notebook and they make a list of everything they want to thank God for regularly. Or are you what's the word? Maybe animated when you thank God? You think, thank you, God. I walked in these doors one time, just kind of cracked them open, and Ronnie Hodge was walking around in here, and he was going like this, thank you. And there was nobody else in here. And I thought, all right, that's how Hodge does it, He's in here walking around, flailing his arms, thanking God, and that's awesome, But how do you do it? Do you make a list? Do you have a plan? Or does it just come to you, Wherever you're at that day, on the fly, you're just driving down the road, something hits you, you thank God for it. That's good. How about thanking others? How do you thank other people? Are you an immediate thank you every time somebody does something for you? Or maybe somebody does something for you. Are you a thank you noter? You like to write thank you notes? Nobody likes to write thank you notes, do they? None of you? Okay. My mom is the thank you note warden. That's what we call her. When I was growing up, Mom always wanted us to write thank you notes. If somebody sent you a card and it had some cash in it, you're writing a thank you note. They sent you a gift, you're writing a thank you note. Somebody did something for you, one of those milestones in your life, you're sitting down with a 50-page, list of everybody you got to thank you for and you write the note, it meant a lot to me, envelope, licking, stamping, the whole deal. I was not a fan, in case you can't tell. I don't love writing thank you notes. I'm sorry. Mom knows this. She actually got really angry at me one time. We're at a family dinner, and a lot of the extended family was there, which would be sending cash in envelopes, for birthdays and whatnots. And I got on my soapbox about thank you notes at the dinner table and said something to the effect of, I feel like if these people really love me and sent me this gift, they wouldn't want me to have to work after it, And I felt the blue eyes on me, but I continued, and I said something to the effect of, I tell you what, just tell them, just take $5 off the gift and keep it as penance for the thank you card I'm not going to send. So, strangely enough, I stopped receiving cash in thank you cards. I'm just kidding. How do you say thank you? Do you text? Do you shorthand the TY? TY. Do you give gifts to acknowledge when somebody does something for you? I know people that do that the way they love to say thank you is in gift giving. So like, Hank, came by and jumped off your car for you with his jumper cables. You sent him a foot scrubber. You know what I mean? Like some people, that's what you like to do. That's great. How do you say thank you? Do you have a plan? Do you have a process for the way you say thank you? What about next week at Thanksgiving? What does your family do? Do y'all have anything that you're going to actually do for Thanksgiving? Do you go around the table and make everybody say what they're thankful for? Do you pause at any time in the time that you have off of work, hopefully, to celebrate? Are you going to pause at any time and just do something to thank God, to thank other people in your life, to acknowledge what others may have done for you, or the difference that others may have had in your life? Is there anything in the hubbub and the buzz of meals and traveling and this and that for which you're going to stop and you're actually going to say, thank you? I'm just asking. Maybe you just let the thank yous happen as you feel them. When you feel super thankful, when the mood strikes you, you will say thank you. When the time is finally available, when you finally have a moment, you will say thank you to some people. I want to say this. If that's how you operate when it comes to thankfulness, that may very well be an incredible missed opportunity in your life. I want to say this. It may be a real problem in your life. Can I show you? In order to do that, guess what I got to do? I got to tell you a story. That's exactly right. If you want to turn in your Bibles to Luke chapter 17. We're going to be beginning in verse 11. And I want to tell you a story that I believe illustrates the problem with not having a plan when it comes to thankfulness. Luke chapter 17. In Luke chapter 17, verse 11, we're told that Jesus was traveling from Galilee towards Jerusalem by way of Samaria. He's going through Samaria to get to Jerusalem. Now, is that significant? Yes, it is significant. Let me explain this. That was the natural route that one would go in order to get to Jerusalem. Okay, it made all the geographical sense in the world. That is the way the roads went. That is the way that you would travel. However, Jesus was a Jewish man. Particularly, he was a Jewish teacher. And this would not be considered appropriate, normal, or even socially acceptable for him to want to get to Jerusalem by way of Samaria. Because by going that way, Jesus was taking the chance of engaging with Samaritans on the road and in their towns. And this is what we know about this time period. Tensions between the Jews and the Samaritans were at an all-time high at this time. Neither group, frankly, were interested in rubbing elbows with the other. They didn't want to have a lot to do with each other. They didn't want to have to deal with one another. As was typically the case, when they would come together, conflict arose often. That's the truth between the Jews and Samaritans. However, as we see often in the Bible, this is the route that Jesus chooses, and I believe the reason Jesus chooses this route is because he has every intention of engaging the Samaritans. He has every intention of talking to them and getting to know them and letting them see who he is. So Jesus is going there. In verse 12 it says this, as he entered a village there, 10 men with leprosy stood at a distance, pay attention, stood at a distance, crying out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Now, there's quite a bit of detail that we need to break down in this verse. Everybody with me? As Jesus entered a village, it says there, stood 10 men with the disease leprosy. Now, leprosy was prevalent in the world at this time, and this was a disease characterized by, as being really the rotting disease. Your body literally fell apart as you lived. One piece at a time. First, there were skin discolorations that began, which were followed by wounds, which eventually encapsulated the extremities, morphing them to be unrecognizable as hands, as feet, as faces. That's what leprosy did. Eventually, people would succumb to the disease, being able to move, to being able to live on their own, but not before appearing to be a walking corpse before they died. It was incurable. Everybody with me? As if the physical infirmities weren't bad enough, the disease carried with it also social and cultural ramifications. You were quarantined. And I'm not talking about you were quarantined for a week because you got the flu. I'm talking about you were quarantined indefinitely once you were told you had this disease. According to Levitical law, once leprosy was diagnosed by a priest, you were excommunicated from your own life. You were not allowed to remain with your family. You were forced to live on your own. You couldn't mingle with other healthy people. That's the significance you see in the scripture where it says stood at a distance. It makes that reference for a reason. It's to show us that they had to be off to themselves. You couldn't go to the store. You couldn't grab a bite to eat. You couldn't go to work. You were quarantined completely from your normal life. As a matter of fact, the only people you could associate were who? Other lepers, which is why we're told there are 10 of them. These 10 people lived together, had to stay together. It was the only social interaction they had was another sick person, another person who was afflicted the way they were afflicted. We know from the other statements in this story, this was a mixed bag too. Backgrounds, ages, Samaritans, Jews alike. It's funny how the differences go away when you're suffering together. Their plight had made these men sympathetic sufferers. These men apparently had heard of Jesus. We know that because they recognized Jesus, or at least him and his entourage. They recognize him as he's traveling at a distance, right? So they recognize who Jesus is. Apparently, I believe they had heard of Jesus. They had heard of his miracles. And we're told they begin to cry out. And I think this is significant. It doesn't say that they were like, Jesus. They weren't like that. These men were shouting. They were crying. They were overcome with emotion. Just the breeze of hope that was in their vicinity caused them to want to holler, shout, cry with everything they had to get Jesus' attention, to just have him look their way. The chance that this miracle worker was in their vicinity led them to cry out to Jesus, have mercy on us, please help us. Help us. In verse 14 it says this, it said, he looked at them and said, go show yourselves to the priest. Now this is also significant because this is very different. We see Jesus heal lepers in multiple places in the Bible. In some of these situations, Jesus reaches out. He actually touches the lepers, which was a big no-no, but Jesus did that, and he was very intimate, and he told them, you are healed. We see that in other places in the Bible, but right here, Jesus says something completely different. Jesus says, go and show yourselves to the priest. Now, in order for these men to enter back into their normal lives, they had to be vindicated by a priest. A priest had to look and say, you are completely healed. All of the marks, all of the lesions, all of these things on your body are gone, so you've been healed. Well, Jesus tells these men to go to the priest, and they're standing there in full-blown leprosy. Nothing's happened. They're not healed. They haven't been touched by him. Nothing's happened. Jesus requires an act of faith from these men. Turn right now, just as you are, and begin walking to the priest. Head to them and let them survey you. Jesus requires these men to take a step of faith. Look at this. And as they went, they were cleansed of their leprosy. How do y'all imagine this? Y'all know how I imagine it, man? I imagine they start walking, and they're like, all right, we're doing this. We're just going to go. I don't think they were worried about looking dumb in front of the priest. I think this was a chance. This was desperation. This was faith. This is what they want to do. They started walking, and all of a sudden, fingers began to uncurl. Toes began to unclench. Limps began to straighten up. Faces began to clear up, and all of a sudden, as they went, every step they were taking forward, with every step they were more and more healed. That's how I see it. With every step, they were more and more healed. In verse 15, it says this. It says, one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back to Jesus shouting, praise God. So let me explain. 10 men walking, headed to the priest. I believe their pace was picking up as they realized they were healed. Headed to the priest, they were thinking, man, we're going to go. We get there, they're going to tell us we're healed. Can you believe this? I think they're looking at each other, hitting each other, and one of them slows down. And he realizes he's healed. And his immediate reaction was, I must go back to Jesus. It says he gets to Jesus and he falls at his feet. Fell to the ground at Jesus' feet. Look at this word. Thanking him for what he had done. Did you see the word? Thanking him. This man had to go back to Jesus in order to thank him for what he had done. And the Bible gives us one more piece of information. This man was a Samaritan. This was the enemy, right? This was a Samaritan. This man didn't return to ask another favor. This man didn't return for anything other than to fall at Jesus' feet and thank him for what he had done. Now, this is very important. This is the lesson we're looking for right here. Verse 17, read this with me. It said, Jesus asked, didn't I heal 10 men? He said, didn't I heal 10 men? He said, where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? Jesus acknowledges the fact that this man, the Samaritan, was the lone one to return to say thank you. It's verse 19, it said, and Jesus said to the man, stand up and go, your faith has healed you. He lets the man leave. Can I show you a lesson? If thankfulness is not something we are always thinking about, if thankfulness is not something we are always trying to do, planning to do, have a process for doing, if thankfulness is not something we have built into our lives, I want to show you the danger. Look at this. Most thankfulness, I believe, goes unexpressed. I believe this story shows us that. Most thankfulness in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives, most thankfulness goes unexpressed. Let me ask you a question. Do you think all 10 men were thankful?
Yes.
I need more than Rhonda to just answer me. I appreciate you, though. Do you think all 10 men were thankful?
Yes.
Of course they were. Of course they were. Yet, only one sought to express that thankfulness back to Jesus. Only one. Only one paused, turned, came back, and took the time to say thankful. Thank you. Most thankfulness goes unexpressed. 9 out of the 10 didn't return to say thank you. And I don't believe this statistic is just a statistic that just happens to be in the Bible. 9 out of 10 did not return to say thank you. Their thankfulness did not translate into action. I believe they were thankful, but for some reason it didn't translate into action. You say, why do you think that is, church? Why do you think it is? You think they weren't thankful enough? Quantity? Is this a quantity situation? They weren't thankful enough. So it didn't, they just weren't happy enough about what Jesus had done for them, so that's why they didn't. Maybe it's not a quantity situation, maybe it's a quality situation. Maybe those 9 people were just bad people. You think that? You think they're just bad people, lazy, selfish, awful people? I don't think it's any of those things. Let's be honest with you. I think they're normal people. I think they were normal people who received an incredible gift from Jesus, but for some reason, they didn't say thank you. Can I be honest with you? I sat around for a week and thought about this story. And I thought, man, why didn't those guys go back? Why didn't they go back? Why don't we say thank you? Why does most of our thankfulness go unexpressed? Why is it that, and I believe this statistic carries, I believe a lot of us feel thankfulness a lot, and 9 times out of 10, some statistic like that, we fail to ever return and to say thank you for what has been done for us. I think it carries. And so I was looking at this story and I was thinking, why in the world did these guys not go say thank you? And why do we not say thank you? Why do we not express our gratefulness and our thankfulness the way we should? And I came up with 4 reasons. 4 reasons that I think we fail to express our thankfulness. Can I share them with you? Number 1, everybody ready? If you're a note taker, this is the note-taking part of the sermon. Ready? I think maybe these guys were out of practice. I think they were out of practice of being thankful. And this is what I believe. Thankfulness unpracticed is thankfulness forgotten. Expressing thankfulness, I believe, is a skill and a habit. I believe it is something that we can build into our lives. Meaning this, the more you do it, the better at it you get. And the more frequently you'll do it. The more you see it, the more you acknowledge it, the more likely you are to see it and acknowledge it and express it every time you have the opportunity. You don't believe me? Ask that rude kid in your family whose parents never made them say thank you for squat. Right? Ask them when they're 25 and you're like, yeah, they're still a spoiled brat. Y'all got that kid in y'all's family or is that just us? Okay. There's a reason that we look at our kids and we make our kids say thank you. Here's an assumption we could make about the other 9 lepers. Perhaps they were out of practice just because life had been so hard. It'd been so long since they had taken the time to look and see any good, any positives, any wins, any blessings in their life, that perhaps they were just a little bit out of practice and they forgot how important it was to turn around and say thank you. Thankfulness is practice. Thankfulness unpracticed is thankfulness forgotten. Number 2, you ready? Maybe they were in a hurry. I think these dudes were just in a hurry, man. They were in a hurry to get to life, to get back to what they had. I want to tell you something. Christmas time never failed when I was a kid. As soon as we were done and I was waiting on the last person to open up their presents, I wanted to be up. I wanted to go shoot the ball, ride the bike, enjoy whatever it was that I was given at Christmas. And it never failed. My mom would grab me by the arm pretty sternly for some reason. And she would say, you make sure you go around the room, you hug everybody, and you tell everybody thank you. And the reason why, I don't know why she told me this way, but sorry, she's here. I'm picking on her today, bad. It was important that I not get in such a hurry to enjoy all the gifts that I didn't take an opportunity to say thank you. And I think these lepers, and I think all of us at times are in such a hurry to enjoy the gift, to take on the blessing, to step back into life, that we fail to pause to say thank you. I think these lepers were ready to get back to their families. I think they're ready to get back to their kids. They're ready to get to those priests, get everything cleared up, get back to work, get back to life, that they just weren't willing to slow down long enough to say thank you. You got it? Number 2, in a hurry. Number 3, they got to know. They got to know. I think this is something that happens all the time. This was Jesus that healed them, right? Jesus saw the pep in their step as they took off towards the priest. Like Jesus, I think there's this thing that happens in our mind, like they know what they did for me. They know how they blessed me. They know how they helped me. They know I'm thankful. And we think just a passing like, oh, thanks, is enough to acknowledge what they've done. And we just think they know how thankful I am, and we take for granted the importance and the impact that actually making a deal out of being thankful can have. We think to ourselves, they got to know how thankful we are. They know what they've done for me. They know how they've helped us. They know how they've served us. So I don't need to go back and say it. I don't need to make this into a procession. And here's the truth about thankfulness. Sometimes it needs to be kind of a deal. It needs to be something that's important. It needs to be something like falling at Jesus' feet and praising Him for what He's done. It needs to be that big when we thank you. Number 3, they got to know. Here we go. Number 4, you ready? Everybody ready? Yes. I deserve it. Let's be honest, this is an uglier side of why I think sometimes we don't express our thankfulness. I think sometimes we feel like it was only right that we got what we were given. It's only right that somebody helped us out of our hole. It only makes sense. I mean, how easy would it have been for one of those lepers to say, He's Jesus, He can perform miracles. I didn't do anything to deserve this disease. It just happened in my life. Everything's been taken from me. Why would Jesus not want to help me? There's a little selfish element to this. There is this ego attached to so many of us that sometimes I think we fail to say thank you because we kind of, in the deepest parts of us and maybe the a little more ugly side of our hearts, we kind of feel like we deserve good things to happen to us. We deserve people to help us. We're good people. We do decent things, and we kind of deserve these things. We expect these good things to happen. Here's the truth. We deserve nothing. Do you understand, for God in heaven to do anything for you is such an act of grace, such an act of mercy, such an incredible act of love that we don't deserve. And I want to tell you something. When it comes to people, we're all just trying to survive this thing. And if somebody sees you and they hear you and they seek to help you and do for you and sacrifice for you, that is a huge deal that you did not deserve. So you got them? You got all 4? Truthfully, though, regardless of the reason, this is what I want you to know this morning. 9 men missed out. 9 lepers could have fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked Him. 9 men could have had a little bit more time with Him. They could have expressed to Him the difference that he had made in their life. And this is what I think matters. These 9 men could have left a legacy of gratitude rather than a shroud of disappointment in Jesus. Because the one thing I cannot miss is Jesus is the one that acknowledged, didn't I heal 10 of you? Jesus noticed that only one came back. And he acknowledged and he questioned it. And I believe that Jesus did that to share a valuable lesson with you and I, and that is thankfulness seldom. Are y'all with me? Thankfulness seldom makes it back to the people who really need it. Our thankfulness seldom makes it back to the people who need it. If we truly want to honor Christ with our lives, then we must be intentional with our thankfulness. So here's your action step. Can I give you guys a task? Y'all willing to do some homework this week? Did a kid say no back there? Listen, I like his style or her style. Express your thankfulness. Express your thankfulness. At some point in time, I want you to start the habit. I want you to sit down. You can sit down with your family, you can sit down with your kids, you can sit down by yourself, I don't care. But make a list of some things you really need to thank God for. Not just kind of acknowledge and pass and not assume that he thinks you're thankful for it. I'm telling you, sit down and make a list and say, God, here are some things I see in my life that I must make a deal out of. I must pause right here and thank you for. And I want to tell you to do one more thing for me. There are some people who make a difference in your life. Family, friends, people at work. And if we're honest, you probably take them for granted to some degree. You've got time. Go and tell them thank you. And don't just text TY. I'm telling you, go and communicate as clearly as possible the difference they have made in your life. This is what I'll tell you. If somehow as people we cannot be thankful for what it is we have, I'm telling you, we will never be thankful for what it is we're going to get. You with me, church? Express your thankfulness this week. That's the chance you have. And I'll tell you, what would be even better if after Thursday and after you were done being comatose, is if your thankfulness extended beyond that into your everyday life. That's what would be awesome.